Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Garrett.
And I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners of Modernist Pantry. Here on WTF every week we cover unique ingredients and techniques and show you new recipes for your kitchen. So remember to subscribe and you'll get notified of our episodes when they come out. This week we are going to show you how to make brownies 3 different ways: classic, keto, and even gluten-free. So stick around for the entire episode and see all the recipes, or if you only have one that you're interested in, check the links in the description below and jump to that time. All right, now we love brownies here. We've done a bunch of brownies. Can we talk about first, I think, when we're looking into a really good brownie, what qualities are we looking for?
It depends on who it is and who's eating the brownie, really. So do you like a brownie that's a bit more fudgy, or do you like a brownie that's just rich in chocolate flavor, maybe a bit more cakey, like my mother likes it? But it really depends on what you want. And the good thing about these recipes is all it takes is a little bit of difference in the cooking time, and you can get all of those, but every single one of them is so full of flavor, and they're going to last a lot longer because of what we're using.
All right, so I think the best way to kind of go through them is maybe to jump into the demos. I know we're going to walk through the classic recipe and the keto recipe. The gluten-free we did on a previous episode. We'll link to that if you want to check that out in greater detail. But of course, as always, all the recipes are in the links in the description below. Now, okay, starting with the classic brownie, I guess because you're doing this for yourself mostly, what are you looking for in that classic brownie?
I like center cut as fudgy as possible. And this recipe is great because you get that fudginess almost to the edges with this recipe, depending on how long you cook it. So around 30 minutes, you're going to get this super fudgy, almost, gooey when you scoop it out of the pan brownie. So this is something that's amazing, and we found a few different things that we did with it to, one, up the flavor, and two, up the ability to hold on to that. Because sometimes if you don't get to all the brownies in one day, which happens, right, you get that edge that it's just a little too hard, it's a little too stale. Like the center's really good, but the edge can just not hold up to the rest of the brownie. It's still delicious, but why not make it delicious for longer? And we found an ingredient that's going to help with that, and that's liquid sunflower lecithin. So it's going to really hold on to that moisture and fat and just give you the best experience, like, consistently. Yeah,
and I'm sure you're going to walk us through the demo right here, but let's suppose you make a big sheet pan of brownie and you don't eat it all on the same day. How long do you think that liquid sunflower lecithin is going to help you extend that shelf life?
So it's going to be good for up to a week, especially because a lot of people just make them and leave them on the counter, right? If you were to keep them in a refrigerator, well wrapped, it's going to last a lot longer, 2 weeks, something like that. If you were to freeze them and pull them out, it's going to last even longer there. It's just not going to let that water release from it. So it's a great recipe for, making a super consistent, long-lasting brownie.
Awesome. Can't wait to taste it.
So let's get into it very simply. So I put the liquid sunflower lecithin right in with my eggs, and the reason why I did that is that it's sticky. It's kind of hydrophobic, which means it doesn't like water so much. So if I put it in with the eggs and I measure it directly in there, I don't have to scrape it out of the bottom of a bowl or something, right? So I can put it right in there. If it goes just slightly over, it's not the end of the world. This is about 0.6% to the total weight of the recipe itself, not just the flour, right? So it's a small amount for what we're doing.
Yeah, maybe like a teaspoon compared to everything else.
Yeah. So, and when I mix it with these eggs, the lecithin that's naturally in the eggs is going to kind of grab onto that and just going to allow it to emulsify nicely.
Okay, so it's kind of helping what the eggs are already doing.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So we can get it in here, and now we have this wonderful glass bowl. So for the sake of internet television, right? Generally, this would be a very hot caramel that I'm going to be adding directly into here. And what that's going to do is it's going to slightly cook the eggs. It's going to allow them to froth up with the ability to, make sure that caramel is timed perfectly. It'd be very difficult for doing it on screen. So we have the caramel here. May need a little bit of help. But what this also does is it gets in there and it starts to free up those eggs. Like I said, cook it a little bit. And this is in place of all the sugar in our recipe. So rather than adding just granulated sugar at this point, we wanted to add another layer of flavor. So we made a very deep, rich caramel. If you want it to be a little bit lighter, you absolutely could do that. You could do a caramel that's cooked to a lower temperature. But here we did a very rich, on the verge of burnt but not burnt, so that it's tasting bad. But we want to give as much rich flavor as we possibly can, and that's what we did here. So get that in there. I mean, it is caramel, so it's going to stick a little bit. But that's in place of all the sugar that's in this recipe, other than the sugar that's naturally in the chocolate. Or not naturally, but added to the chocolate, right? So I'm just going to get this up. And this allows a lot of the air to get trapped within the eggs, almost like a sabayon, right?
Okay.
So you're cooking those eggs slightly, and it allows the air to get trapped in there because this has no leavening agent.
Okay.
It is just the eggs that are making this, get a little bit light and fluffy. So at this point, I'm going to add my grade A vanilla bean. So this is something that we carry, and that's 1 vanilla bean completely scraped. You can save those pods and make your own vanilla extract if you'd like, but we want to make sure that the caramel, vanilla, it's going to smell wonderful, right? Yesterday I was making these and people barged into the kitchen. They're like, "What are you making?" Right? So that vanilla bean's going to be very aromatic, as we can smell right now. So let that go. This would generally mix for about 15 minutes, but we can kind of pass through. Right here I have butter and my chocolate. I'm just going to mix it up to make sure it's fluid. So this is 70% chocolate, 100% chocolate, and butter. And I melt this down, and this is going to mix in with my caramel mixture here, and that's totally fine. If you have to scrape the bowl, you can absolutely stop it and scrape it.
Okay.
But I'm going to mix this in here, and I'm basically making an emulsification.
Right.
At this point, I'm going to slowly drizzle in my butter and chocolate, which are both fats, into my lecithin mixture, and you can see this get nice and fluffy as it goes in here. And this is where a lot of that emulsification is going to happen with the liquid liquid sunflower lecithin in this case.
Okay.
Right?
And is this, because when I'm making stuff, sometimes I just forget to add certain things in. So if I forgot to add in the sunflower lecithin with the eggs, can I also add it in here as well?
Yeah, okay. As long as you're adding it before you add the dry ingredients, it's really going to be fine.
All right.
You just want to have the ability to catch onto the fat and the water at the best possible time. If you happen to get it when the dry ingredients are mixed in, not the end of the world, but you definitely want it to be in by this point, or even just after this point, and allow it to mix a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep this going just for a second. You can definitely see it's getting a little bit more voluminous, I think is the actual word.
Yeah.
It's coming up. It's a beautiful color. So you get that caramel and the chocolate in there as well.
And one thing that I know we've covered on a previous WTF, which is kind of the differences between liquid and powder lecithins. And a lot of people, I think powder lecithin is a little easier to get a lot of times. So a common question that we often get is, if I'm at home and I want to make this recipe, I don't have liquid sunflower lecithin, but I have powder lecithin, can I just sub it in?
If you're in a pinch and you need to, and you want that lecithin in there, I think that is fine. Is it going to give you the exact same results? Not necessarily, because you're not adding that little extra bit of fat in there too, because the liquid sunflower lecithin is a fat-based product, right? So in doing that, you're going to add a little bit extra fat, which adds to gooiness.
Right.
So if you have powdered lecithin and that's what you want to try, sure, but you're not going to get the exact same result. They're not a one-to-one match for each other. While they do the same thing, they work with two different, liquid sunflower lecithin goes with fat and powder goes with water. So at this point, I'm just going to knock it down, and I'm going to add in cream cheese. We found that the cream cheese gives just a little extra rise and a little bit of sturdiness to it, so it doesn't completely collapse and then you just have fudge, right? You get a little bit extra sturdiness to it. It's nice. Mix that in. That's another fat going in there, so allow that to mix in there. Once that seems to be pretty smooth, we can really knock it down and add our dry ingredients that I make a mess with immediately. Right. So that seems to be good. Now, once I add these dry ingredients, I'm just going to mix them till they're mixed in.
Okay.
There's flour in here, and flour will create gluten strands, and it just make it a bit too chewy if we go too long. So this seems pretty good here. Let's actually
I think it also depends on what you like. Like, I also like my brownies a little cakier, so.
Yeah, so if you wanted to, you could absolutely, like I said, just cook the recipe a little bit longer. That will get rid of some of the moisture naturally, so you get that fatty richness, but you're not going to, put this down. You're not going to get rid of the fat. You're going to get rid of a little bit of the moisture just by naturally cooking a little bit longer, right? So I'm going to mix this in. And here we have flour. We have cocoa powder, so a little bit extra chocolate flavor added in there. I have a little bit of salt in here as well. So these are the dry ingredients that we have. And I'm not mixing until I get them all in. I just want to barely mix them in. Because if I was mixing this whole time, it's every pass it goes through, it's creating gluten strands. Okay, just until it comes together, it'll be perfect.
Okay, so that's very little mixing.
Yep. Just until I don't see it, it's not dry anymore. There we go.
All right, and I know you talked earlier on about baking, but can you just refresh on, when we talk about baking times, how long are we looking at here?
Okay, so perfect. If you want to do 25 minutes, that's going to give you the gooeyest brownie I think I've ever had. 35 minutes, we're going to get, let me just get a little scoop so we can take a look at it. You can see how rich it is already. Extremely chocolatey. 35 minutes is going to give you pretty much what we have here, so you get that nice kind of cakey, crispy edge, and then you get that gooey center, and then obviously anything more than that, it's going to be more and more cakey. And around, I think the max that we've got it to is like 45, 50 minutes. And at that point, it's still dense and rich, but there's a little less, of that like really soft center, right? And some people like that, which I'm totally, it's delicious either way, right?
So, so we're probably going to taste test it. Which one of these is the classic brownie?
So the classic brownie is in the center here. And one thing that's good to know is that the caramel that we did, so in cooking the sugar, you're going to get a little bit crispier of a top too. That's a really cool thing. Especially right out of the oven, you're going to get a nice crispy top. And these were baked yesterday, so you're going to have a nice texture to them. They're still super soft, super rich. So it's super a lot, I think, in this episode.
I like the crispy. I think that's my favorite piece. Like, you're a center person. I'm the edge person. I like 100%. That. I like that edge.
I want to barely be able to pick it up.
Yep. This is a really rich brownie. But, it's dense, it's fudgy, it's a little cakey, which I like. The top is crispy, like Scott said. And this is a really decadent brownie. So if that's what you like, you're really going to like this recipe. Oh, it's making my mouth water. Okay, we're going to take a little break, reset the table, and when we come back, we're going to show you how to make a keto brownie.